جناب آواز آ رہی میری؟ اسامہ
جی سر آ رہی ہے.
اچھا گڈ. اپنا سی آر کا نام میں بھول جاتا ہوں.
نعمان سر.
نعمان آ گیا. نعمان نے جوائن کر لیے. عابد آواز آ رہی ہے آپ کو؟
یس سر آ رہی ہے.
اوکے. کہاں پر ہیں آپ عابد؟
جی سر.
کہاں پر ہیں آپ؟
سر میں گھر پر ہوں سر.
نہیں وہ تو ٹھیک ہے لیکن کہاں لوکیشن کہاں پر ہے؟
سر 410 سر
اچھا.
ڈکے میر آباد سر.
اوکے اوکے. نیٹ کا ایشو تو نہیں زیادہ؟
سر تھوڑا بہت ہے سر لیکن ابھی نہیں ہے سر.
اچھا ٹھیک ٹھیک ہے. عامر، محمد عامر،
جی سر.
کیسے ہیں عامر؟
الحمد للہ سر. آپ کیسے ہیں؟
شکر اللہ کا کرم ہے. باقی کلاسز ٹھیک ہو رہی ہیں؟
الحمد للہ سر بہت اچھے جا رہے ہیں.
اچھا اچھا. اور یہ اس سبجیکٹ کی جو لیب ہے وہ بھی آپ کی آن لائن شروع ہے؟
یہ سر شروع ہے سر.
کون پڑھا رہا ہے؟
سر وکاس صاحب ہے میرا خیال میں.
اچھا. یوں ٹیچر کا آپ کو نام شک میں ہے کہ وکاس صاحب ہے کہ کون ہے؟
معاذ امجد ہے سر. معاذ امجد.
اچھا محاذ پڑھا رہا ہے. تو کون سا سافٹ ویئر کروا رہا ہے؟
ابھی تک اسٹارٹ نہیں کیا ہے.
سر وکاس ہے سر. سر وکاس ہے
پرائم
سر.
ایئر ہے سر.
اچھا یہ کیا وجہ ہے یار آپ لوگ اپنے ٹیچر میں کیوں کنفیوز ہیں؟ وکاس کا کہہ رہے ہیں اور ماس کا کہہ رہے ہیں.
سوری وکاس ہے سر. میرے ذہن میں ہائیڈرولوجی والا ٹیچر آ گیا سر. یہ تو
اچھا اچھا. نہیں تو ہائیڈرولوجی آپ کو ماس پڑھا رہا ہے؟
یس سر.
اچھا اچھا. تو وکاس نے ابھی کیا وجہ کہ لیب کیوں نہیں شروع کروائی؟ ویسے تو اسکیجول میں تو ڈالا ہوا ہے، کلاسز تو شروع ہو گئی ہیں.
سر کلاسز شروع ہے سر. اور تھیوری پڑھایا تھا سر. ابھی وہ شروع کریں ہیں سافٹ ویئر اس کلاس میں سر. اس ویک میں.
اچھا اچھا. مطلب میں آپ کی بات پہ کنفیوز ہو گیا. آپ یہ کہنا چاہ رہے ہیں کہ انہوں نے کلاسز تو لینی شروع کر دی ہیں لیکن سافٹ ویئر شروع نہیں کروایا.
یس سر.
اوکے اوکے. پھر تو خیر ہے، پھر تو کوئی ایشو نہیں. پھر تو کلاسز شروع ہیں آپ کی، شروع ہو جائے گا وہ بھی. اور کون سا سافٹ ویئر کروائیں گے وہ؟
پرائم ایئر ہے سر.
پرائما ویرا کروائیں گے. اچھا چلیں اچھا. یہ تو ابھی کیا کریں ہم؟ شروع کریں کہ تھوڑا سا ویٹ کریں؟ 13 اسٹوڈنٹ ہے. اسٹوڈنٹ بھی کام ہے ابھی تک. تو جناب شروع کر لیں کہ تھوڑا سا ویٹ کریں؟
8:15 تک سر ذرا اگر ویٹ کرے تو.
ہماری کلاس بھی یار کم ہوتی ہے. نعمان کو کہنا کہ یہ تھوڑا خیال رکھیں.
سر سٹارٹ کر لے سر. ویسے بھی ریکارڈنگ ہو رہی ہے تو
میرا خیال ہے
ضروری
اسٹارٹ. ہاں میرا خیال ہے. آئی ایگری. ویسے یہ کہ پھر بھی انٹریکٹیو پرپزز کے لیے میں یہ اب ریکارڈنگ بھی ہو رہی ہے، جو اسٹوڈنٹ سنیں گے بعد میں، یہ میری ان سے بڑی اب میں रिक्वेस्ट का वर्ड तो मैं यूज नहीं करना चाहूंगा क्योंकि मुनासिब नहीं है. दिस शुड नॉट बी माय रिक्वेस्ट, दिस इज माय, यानी कि वेरी क्या कहेंगे, एक डिमांड कह लें या एक रिक्वायरमेंट कह लें, या आई एम आस्किंग यू कि आप लोग टाइम पे 8 बजे आए, क्योंकि टाइम खामखा का टाइम ज़ाया होता है. नो डाउट कि लेक्चर ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल होगा तो आप सुन भी सकते हैं, लेकिन अगर यही पर्पज हो तो फिर तो हमें अटेंडेंस की भी जरूरत नहीं है, फिर तो इस 8 बजे मुझे आने की जरूरत नहीं है. आई शुड बी रिकॉर्डिंग द क्लास एनी टाइम ऑफ माई ओन चॉइस एंड आई विल अपलोड दैट क्लास. तो ये पर्पज नहीं है एक्चुअली. इस इन क्योंकि हमारी जो ये ऑनलाइन क्लासेस हैं सॉर्ट ऑफ हाइब्रिड है. हाइब्रिड इस सेंस में कि ऑनलाइन भी हैं बट इंटरेक्टिव भी हैं, प्योरली ऑफलाइन सिस्टम नहीं है ये वाला. तो इसके लिए इसकी इसकी स्पिरिट को बरकरार रखने के लिए, इसकी स्पिरिट का मुकम्मल फायदा उठाने के लिए जरूरी है कि ऑल दी स्टूडेंट्स बाय एंड लार्ज शुड बी प्रेजेंट शार्प 8 o'clock. और नौमान को भी मैं ये कहता हूँ कि सबको मैसेज कर दे. मैं अब फिर या तो एक काम करूंगा कि फिर मैं 8 बजे, 8 बज के 2 मिनट पे, 3 मिनट पे, बिफोर 8:05 मैं अटेंडेंस लगा लूंगा. फिर एक ऑप्शन ये भी हो सकता है. और ठीक है, आई अंडरस्टैंड कि नेट का भी लोगों को इशू हो सकता है, वो अपनी जगह पे है, लेकिन बाज लोग जो है वो नेट की वजह नहीं, वैसे सुस्ती में वो नहीं आ रहे, विच इज़ नॉट गुड. तो इसलिए जो है वो काइंडली मेरे सबको ये अर्ज है कि यू मस्ट बी ज्वाइनिंग द क्लास इन टाइम, क्योंकि इंटरेक्टिव में रखना चाहता हूँ, क्वेश्चंस हो और बातचीत हो, और फिर आगे हम आगे चले. नुमान ने ज्वाइन किया कि अभी तक नहीं किया? नुमान ने ज्वाइन नहीं किया. एनीवेज, तो बैकअप सीआर कौन होगा जो क्विक मुझे रिस्पॉन्स कर सके? मुदस्सिर है?
सर जो भी हो बस आप सिलेक्ट करें.
जी सर.
ठीक है, ठीक है. चले मुदस्सिर, कोई अगर सवाल जवाब हो तो आपसे चलेगा. चलो बिस्मिल्लाह करते हैं, स्टार्ट करते हैं. लेट्स.
ओके सर.
Okay, good. Okay, let's start the lecture. This is week number 3. Again, this is a very important lecture. This is related to project management processes groups. You will you will learn about these today, and then we will discuss the roles and responsibility of an engineer and a project manager. So again, very critical. So you will be realizing that tomorrow when you're working in the field, then how critical will be your role as an engineer or as a project engineer. And I must say that uh, you will realize that this type of coursework, this type of discussion, these type of topics, generally this is not part of your other curriculum. Am I right, Mudassir? मुदस्सिर, ये बात दुरुस्त है कि
यस सर.
इस किस्म का जो अभी हम ये डिस्कशन है, ये टॉपिक्स हैं, ये तो आपके रूटीन के टॉपिक्स नहीं है जो आप पढ़ते हैं सब्जेक्ट में, ऐसा ही है ना?
जी जी सर.
ओके, ओके, ठीक है. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to explain the term project management, explain 5 project management process groups, explain the process interaction and process groups overlapping relationship, explain 10 project management knowledge areas, mapping the process groups with knowledge areas, and definitely uh, 2 things which are missing, that you will be able to understand what is the role of engineer and project manager. Okay. The first question: what is project management? Project management is the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. So now just imagine, as a civil engineer, tomorrow you are in the field. You are assigned that your project is, for example, construction of a road, for example, construction of a bridge, for example, construction of a water supply scheme. You might be working on a hydropower project where a lot of things are involved, or you are involved in designing. Your job is not the construction, but you are in a design firm, and you have been asked to do a project, for example, design of a road, design of a building. Maybe you are doing some non-destructive testing of any structure. Maybe you are asked to do some rate analysis. So there can be, maybe you're asked to study certain parameters in the field, maybe traffic count studies, and so on and so forth. So there can be hundreds of different forms where you can be engaged as a civil engineer. Now, when you are engaged there, forget about your technical expertise which is required to conduct that. For example, if it's a geotechnical problem, then you should be knowing what are the various techniques with regard to geotechnical exploration. So I'm not going to discuss those technical parameters directly over here, but the thing which you are going to discuss is that how would you proceed in this project and deliver this project successfully. If you do not have the skill sets and knowledge of project management, you are bound to fail. I'm telling you, no matter how good geotechnical engineer you are, no matter how good hydraulic engineers you are, no matter how good structural engineer you are, you will fail if you don't follow the project management practice. You don't practice the project management. So this is what we are trying to say over here, that it will be the application of knowledge which you will gain in these from this course. Then you're going to develop these skills. You're going to develop these skills, that how to deliver something, how to calculate something, how to give an output. So these skills will matter a lot. And I just talked about the software which you will be taught in the lab course, for example Primavera, how efficiently you can how you develop to use those skill sets. And definitely you're getting the knowledge as well. Now, that tool, learning of that tools, using of that tool, definitely requires skills. So you need to have the tools, and then when you use those tools, that is the skill which is very important. And behind these things will be the knowledge. If you don't know how to estimate a task, for example, in last class at the end slide, we discuss what is we discuss how to put a time for a task. And in the last class we discussed that don't mix task with activity. There can be portfolio, there can be project, there can be sub project, activity, sub activity, task. And task, we defined that it is the brick, it is the basic unit. So this is your knowledge actually. And then I gave you the concept that try to have 4, 5, 6 levels of work breakdown structure, and how to estimate the time, pessimistic time, optimum time. And most likely from there you put in the formula of that weighted average, and you get the time for that. So that all this is knowledge. So you combine this knowledge with your skills, and definitely you use some tools and techniques to come up and do the project management on the ground in order to complete that project, in order to meet the requirements. Then you will be successful. If you are a very good structural engineer, you know the nonlinear dynamic analysis, and you are very sophisticated, but if you're given the project, if you're working in a team, you're assigned task, if you are unable to manage, you will fail. Okay, this application of knowledge requires the effective management of appropriate processes. So we will study these processes in a while, in coming slides. Why this is flipped? Just hold on, just hold on, just hold on. Just hold on. My digital pen is flipped the other way. I think it has been updated. Just hold on. 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 There is some issue. No problem. If it works, then it is good. Otherwise, we have to live with it. Let's see. नहीं, ड्राइवर मुझे सिस्टम रीस्टार्ट करना पड़ेगा. ओके, नो प्रॉब्लम, आई कैन लिव विद इट फॉर नाउ. Actually, my tablet somehow I think it got updated without realization. मुझे अंदाजा नहीं था, तो वो बाज़ दफ़ा फ्लिप हो जाता है. It's the it gets. चले इसको मैं उल्टा कर लेता हूँ. Yes, that is also possible. Now I have big space. I can do this. Okay, this is good. Okay, so we are going to study the processes in a while. मुदस्सिर, आवाज तो आ रही है ना मेरी?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. A process is a set of interrelated actions. Interrelated action. अभी हम study करेंगे. We are going to study those. So, interrelated action and activities that are performed to achieve a pre-specified set of products, results, or services. So, we are going to have a process approach. Process approach means there will be certain steps, there will be certain activities which we will keep in mind while doing our projects. If we are designing, if we are constructing something, so we will have set of interrelated activities, we will recognize them and we will go by that. And that process approach will give us a successful delivery. The project management processes ensures the effective flow of the project throughout its existence. So what is the purpose of this process-based approach? The purpose is actually to ensure that all the activities are done properly, systematically, and it gets completed. Okay. The project life cycle is managed by executing a series of project management activity known as project management processes. This is another way of describing this. So project life cycle, if you remember, I've explained in the last class, you conceive a project. You are executive engineer in Peshawar or Charsada, and you realize that in your area, people have difficulty in crossing when there is rainwater. Whenever there is rain, so there is a certain area people cannot cross. So there is a requirement of a maybe culvert or maybe a slab bridge, I mean a bridge. So you conceive this, you prepare a PC2, then you conduct the studies, you design it, you prepare a PC1, you get the cost approval, and then you do the construction, and then you are monitoring throughout the construction, and then you prepare the PC4, PC5. PC5 is basically post completion evaluation for 5 years. So this is the project life cycle. So in order to do this, so PC1, PC4, PC2, etc. is basically the planning commission's format for the government to approval. But that process at the back end has these concepts of project management. So it is telling you that project life cycle will be managed by executing series of various activities, and they will form those and it will form that process. Every project management process procedure or more outputs from one or more inputs by using appropriate management tools and techniques. So anyways, we will see these things in detail. The output can be deliverable and outcomes are result. This you already know. Every project will have certain delivery. We have discussed this in the last class as well. Project management processes are logically linked by outputs by they produce. So these processes which we are going to study in the coming slides, they will be logically, they will have certain logic. They are not arbitrarily linked. For example, if the design is done and instructions are passed on, somebody will act upon those drawings of construction drawings, and then they will start the work. But at a certain point in time, they may ask for cross-checking and verification before the concreting is done. So there will be certain logic behind doing all these things. Okay, an input to another process. Sometimes what will happen is when your one process ends, for example, this is the start, this is the finish. So this will be the input to the start of the next process, and then it will finish somewhere after this. Okay. Project management process group is a logical grouping. This we just said in a specific, the process groups. Okay. What are the process groups? The first one is initiating. Initiating. This is the logical way of starting. Then you have the planning. and you see this is the process group. Then you have execution. Once it is in execution, then you keep on monitoring it, and then you close the project. So these are the 5 processes. Now please, I would like to explain process. This is something critical and important to understand, that what is the basic definition of process. We have been talking about this process in the last 2 3 slides, that process and process, they are logical sequence and so on. So what is a process? Let me explain this by giving you a very simple example. मोहम्मद आमिर, मेरी बातें समझ आ रही हैं अभी तक?
यस सर।
कोई कंफ्यूजन तो नहीं है?
नो सर, सर कोई भी नहीं।
खालिद, खालिद रहमान, खालिद रहमान, खालिद रहमान, खालिद रहमान। क्यों जनाब, खालिद को क्यों आवाज नहीं आ रही? खालिद क्लियर है?
असल में सर ये कोई इमरजेंसी का है सर, उधर गया हुआ है घर।
और तो इंटरनेट का प्रॉब्लम होता है?
यस सर, सब कोई इमरजेंसी में।
फिलहाल अभी ठीक है।
ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है। खालिद बोल रहा है, कोई इशू नहीं है। खालिद, किस तरह नेट का ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है?
नहीं नहीं, अभी सर सेट है सर, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह।
आपकी आवाज तो माशाल्लाह बड़ी क्लियर आ रही है, कोई इशू नहीं लग रहा। चलिए, अच्छी बात।
यस सर, बिल्कुल सर। ओके सर।
ओके, थैंक यू। उजैर, मुदस्सिर कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं?
सर ये जो पहले लाइन है सर, द प्रोसेस ग्रुप्स आर नॉट प्रोजेक्ट फेज, सर इसको एक्सप्लेन कर दे जरा।
अच्छा, मैं करता हूँ। ठीक है, उजैर।
यस सर।
उजैर, क्लियर हो रहा है?
जी सर, क्लियर है।
ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है, ओके। अपना मुदस्सिर ने क्वेश्चन किया, मुदस्सिर ने पूछा क्वेश्चन।
जी सर।
ओके, ठीक है मुदस्सिर। मुदस्सिर, ये मैं प्रोसेस को पहले एक्सप्लेन कर लूं और फिर आपको इसमें समझाना और भी आसान हो जाएगा। अच्छा, now let's try to understand what is the basic concept of a process. Simple process, I am just talking in general, but this is a technical term. There are 2 types of generally approaches you can say. One is called the process approach. One can be called it loosely sort of a I would say traditional way of approaching a problem, solving a problem, or conducting a business of any organization, which can be sort of hierarchical or compartmental or organizational or divisional or sectional type of approach. Let me explain what I mean from this. You just consider university, for example. If you remember, after FSC, you got the admission in the university. So I remember previously, many years back, when we came to the university, so what would happen? What would happen? It was sort of it was the admission was happening. Admission of the students would happen by various departments involved. So I remember when I came, so we had no idea, for example, where to go. We went to the inquiry. The inquiry people were sitting there. We asked them, we are here for admission. They said, okay, first please go to civil department, and the civil department is in that location. Surely there will be the admission of electrical and agriculture and mining and many others. So those many students who are coming for the first time to university, they would have came to the inquiry, would have asked, and they would have been guided that please go to mining department, which is towards the basic sciences, and so on. So anyways, we went to the civil department, and from the department, the staff was there. They took our we waited for our turn, whatever was that procedure. So somebody took our document, checked them. Then we went to the chairman did certain cross checks or whatever you call it, and then the chairman signed a slip, and then we were told, okay, we can go. And then we came out and we asked, now what should we do? We were told that now please go to the bank and submit your fee over there. So we went to the bank and we asked where the bank is. Anyways, we reached to the bank, we deposited the slips, and then we asked the bank, where should we go? They said, go to the department. For example, we came to the department, they said, okay, now you go to the main establishment or academic section and submit your slips over there. Then we said, we need hostel. Where should we go? They said, okay, go to the provost office, and we went to the provost office. So you see, what happens over here in this story, there are various functional departments of the organization, which is the university, UET. So every department wanted to help us, and they helped us in a very quick fashion, as much early as they could. And the inquiry did the job of informing us. The civil department verified our document and allowed that we should go and submit the fee. The bank facilitated us, and then we went to the academic section or establishment section, whatever was that, and submitted our documents over there, and so on. I exactly don't remember, but something like that. Then for the hostel, we went to the provost of it. Now you see, in this case, every department was functioning sort of independently. They were functioning from the respective functions which have been given to them. But now, over the years, you see there is a transformation, and you already know what is happening right now. Right now, when you came, and this is happening for the last so many, I would say more than 10 years or 15 years, I don't remember, but many, many years ago, what is happening is when you come, you get the message, please go to the admission cell or admission, whatever you call it. So when you go over there, there is a seating arrangement, you're given a token or something like that. I might be slightly off because I'm not involved in this process directly, but I've seen it, but something like that. So please don't mind if I'm slightly not following the exact procedure, but something like that. But in spirit, what is happening, you go to that central hall, which is the academic block on the ground floor. There is a team which welcomes you. They tell you to go to counter number 1, and then you go to counter number 1, gets your form and documents, checks it, verifies it, gives it to the next might be, I don't know which one is the next section, maybe academic section or whatever. Then the bank section is the third one or fourth one. They take the money, give you the receipt, then you go to the next section, and then next section they collect the document, and so on. So this is called the process-based approach. This is a process-based approach. Admission is a process, and we have brought in the departments which have their different people and different functions. We have put them in together in a sequence, in a fashion, so that it becomes a process. So admission is now a process, and it flows. You have to flow through that process, and it is very efficient, very quick relative to what I have told you. When I got admission, it was different. Now this is a process based approach. Now let me give you an example of civil engineering. Now for example, you have a construction firm. Some of you said we want to have a construction firm. Okay, you have a construction firm. Now in your firm, you have the previous system which I've mentioned, the old system of the university, that in your construction company, you have the finance department, you have the transport department or administration department who are responsible for arranging the transport. Then you have the technical section who check the drawings, who modify the drawings. There are engineers who do this. Then you have a quantities section, people who are just working on calculating and verifying the quantities quantities. Then you have a surveying section in your company. Let's say your company is a mid-sized company. So there are different departments within your construction company. Now if it is the first approach, not the process-based approach, for example, when you're working on the project, then what should happen actually is the finance should take care of finances. Somebody should be telling them, and they should be doing it, and so on. Similarly, the transport people, somebody will tell that we need the transport, we need the road roller, and so on, and they should be providing that. But on the contrary, when your organization is working on process-based approach, then what will happen is you will transform these departments you will transform the entire organization into process type company. So you will have one process, for example, bidding process. Your company is always getting involved in bidding so that they can earn project. So you will have a bidding process. Now, bidding process will comprise of administration people. It will comprise of maybe one person from administration, and then maybe technical people, and so on. Maybe from all the department there is one. Now, what is happening is whenever there is a tender, there should be some person in the process who should be looking after the tender. When there is a tender, it should be given to somebody who should go through that tender and see if that is a reasonable tender for us to apply for. Maybe the tender is such that you don't want to go for that project. So there should be some process of screening. So once it is decided that yes, we want to go, so somebody should go and collect the bid documents. Then there should be a team which should be looking into the technical requirements of those bids. And somebody should be preparing it, somebody should be preparing the bid security, and so on. And somebody should be then ultimately submitting it, and then somebody should be present when the bid opening is happening, and somebody is negotiating, and somebody is then responsible for signing the contract. So when you transform this into process, it becomes very efficient in the same organization by having this approach. So you see, this is just the changing the mindset and putting your organization into process based approach. So this is the basic definition of process. Before I go to the question of Mudassir, of this line that the process groups are not project phases, so before I explain this, I want to ask you, is it clear now what I have explained, the process approach?
Yes, sir.
Okay. मुदस्सर अहमद भी है और मुदस्सर जमान भी है, तो ये मुदस्सर अहमद ने कहा यस. व्हाट अबाउट मुदस्सर जमान? इज इट क्लियर?
Yes, sir. Clear, yes, sir.
ओके, गुड. मोहम्मद हमजा.
Yes, sir. Clear.
उसामा. ओके. तूरे सीनीन. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay, good. Okay, now let me quickly explain. The process groups are not project phases. So you see, there is a project. Project is, for example, construction of a dam. In construction of a dam, there might be designing, there might be uh, excavation, there might be mechanical system being installed, electrical system being installed, powerhouse being constructed, and so on. So these are the phases of the project. These are the phases of the project. For example, embankment construction, for example, construction of colonies, for example, powerhouse construction, for example, mechanical system, I mean turbines being turbines being installed, testing and commissioning, and so on, roads being constructed, so many things happening. So there can be these phases in the project. So what we are trying to tell you is, by this sentence, that please don't mix the processes of project management with the phases of the project. Mudassir, are you clear now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Let's go further. So initiation process, it says that defines and authorizes the project or phases of the project to start. So this is the initiation. Somebody is going to authorize that this project is in the public sector. When the government is involved, there is generally a letter which is issued that this project has been the competent authority. Competent authority can be the ACS, additional chief secretary, or any secretary of works, or whosoever who has the authority to approve something. So they authorize it. So that is basically the initiation of that. Without that, you can't do anything. So once that initiation is done, so definitely the project phase will also, some of the phase, 1 or 2 phases of the project would also start. Now next is the planning. Refines the project goal, scope, requirements, etc., and defines the course of action to attain the project objective. We are calling it sort of master plan. So we are refining it. We are going on detail nitty-gritty. When what will be done, when the excavation should happen, when the road should be constructed, when the material should be procured, and so on and so forth. There can be thousands and thousands of things which need to be sequenced, which needs to be put in order, and you give the master plan that how things will be done. Now the next stage is implementation. Brings together all required resources to undertake the project in accordance with the master plan. So what you decided in the planning, that has to be now implemented. Now in this phase, you mobilize on the ground, and you start working, and you start delivering on all those things which are part and decided in the previous phase. Closure. So formalizes acceptance of the project output by a project customer and brings the project to its end. So once everything is achieved, the stakeholders, we have discussed about what are the stakeholders. So during the course of project, all the stakeholders were on board, and then there were some commitments. There was a contract which was signed that these are the specifications, these are the bill of quantities, this is the cost, this is the time, and we want to have this road with these curvatures and these material standards or whatnot and whatnot. Now that is achieved. So you formally close. Now I will try to over here, for example, give you PC4 is the formal in Pakistan, for example, the government of Pakistan, the project which is public project will be formally considered closed when you submit the PC4. Monitoring and control and evaluation monitors the project to identify and assesses shortfalls and variance and initiate corrective action. So this is happening actually not at the end. This is happening throughout the project execution, that you are monitoring it. You are seeing what are the risks involved. We have discussed this in the previous class. And all the risks, hopefully they just remain the risk and there are no issues, but in real life there will be issues, and you will try to solve them as early as possible without any delay, without any cost increase, which sometimes definitely happens, and it does happen especially in big projects. So and there will be some variations happening, and you try to get hold of all these things. So please keep in mind the previous course which we studied 4-1 civil engineering practice, all those stages, PC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So they are the formal sort of procedures or ways or how to do the things in the government of Pakistan. And these things which we are discussing, they are in journal. And by the way, the planning commission people over the years, over the decades, have transformed these fundamental concepts of project management into those performers to have delivery of various generalized projects. Okay. By the way, if you're interested, you must go and see the planning manual, which is prepared by the Planning Commission of Pakistan. It's a big document. I've shared with my students. I don't know, Mudassir, have you seen that? Usama, आपने वो आपको लास्ट टाइम क्लास में इत्तेफाक हुआ प्लानिंग कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान का जो प्रोजेक्ट प्लानिंग का मैनुअल है?
सर वो PC1 PC2 के परफॉर्मेंस देखे थे, मैनुअल मेरे ख्याल में नहीं देखा।
वो काफी आई डोंट नो 100 एंड या 150 पेजेस या 200 पेजेस का डॉक्यूमेंट है, वो तो नहीं देखा?
नो सर, वो नहीं।
एनीबॉडी एल्स, किसी ने देखा हो? शमरोज कह रहा है नहीं। मोहम्मद हमजा नहीं देखा?
नो सर, नहीं देखा।
ओके, ठीक है, मुझे याद कराएं, मैं उसको, मुझे नोमान आ गया, मोहम्मद नोमान आ गया।
यस सर।
नोमान आज लेट आए हैं, खैरियत?
नो सर, मैं तो 8:15 से हूँ सर।
हाँ, लेट आए हैं ना यार नोमान, 8:15 इज लेट।
यस सर।
हाँ ना, तो नोमान मैंने काइंडली ग्रुप में शेयर कर दें कि मैंने, आप रिकॉर्डिंग सुन लें, मैं रिपीट नहीं करूंगा, टाइम ज़ाया हो जाएगा। पहले भी काफ़ी टाइम ज़ाया हुआ है कि वी शुड बी ज्वाइनिंग बाय 8, क्योंकि इंटरेक्टिव क्लास रखनी चाह रहे हैं, वरना रिकॉर्डिंग पे सारे करें और मैं भी अपनी मर्जी से दिन को शाम को रिकॉर्डिंग करके अपलोड कर दूं, बस ये क्लास का टाइम की जरूरत ही नहीं है। सो देयर इज ए फिक्स टाइम, एवरीबॉडी शुड बी ज्वाइनिंग। ठीक हो गया नोमान? ये जरूर सेंसिटाइज करें स्टूडेंट्स को इस बारे में।
ओके सर।
वरना ये अफादियत मिस हो जाएगी। ओके, और नोमान मुझे याद करवाएं कि मैं ये जो प्लानिंग मैनुअल है ये भी मैं आपसे शेयर करूं। इट्स वेरी गुड डॉक्यूमेंट। आप सारे का सारा तो नहीं पढ़ पाएंगे, लेकिन आई विल इनकरेज कि जब आपको मौका मिले यू डू स्टडी दैट।
ओके सर।
ओके ओके, प्रोसेस आइट्रेशंस एंड इंटरेक्शंस, लेट्स सी यहां पर क्या लिखा है। द नंबर ऑफ प्रोसेस आइट्रेशंस एंड इंटरेक्शन बिटवीन प्रोसेस वेरीज बेस्ड ऑन द नीड्स ऑफ द प्रोजेक्ट। प्रोसेसेस जनरली फॉल इनटू वन ऑफ द थ्री कैटेगरीज। कौन कौन सी है? प्रोसेस यूज वंस और एट प्री डिफाइंड पॉइंट्स इन द प्रोजेक्ट। द प्रोसेस डेवलप प्रोजेक्ट चार्टर एंड क्लोज प्रोजेक्ट और फेज आर एग्जांपल्स। प्रोसेस दैट आर परफॉर्म पीरियडिकली एज नीडेड, एक्वायर रिसोर्सेज। थर्ड के बारे में कह रहा है, प्रोसेस दैट आर परफॉर्म कंटिन्यूसली थ्रू आउट द The process defined activities may occur throughout the project life cycle. Many monitor. Okay. Now let me explain. We are trying to distinguish between, we are trying to sensitize ourselves. We are trying to distinguish between things which are repetitive in nature, things which just happen only once in the project, in the beginning, in the end, during the middle, and some activities are periodic. They don't happen all the time, but after a certain period of time, they come up and they do it, and you see it. So we need to formally recognize. जिस तरह देखें आप अपने, you understand, being a student of civil engineering, that there is a live load, there is a dead load, there is a wind load, there can be snow load, there can be rain load, and so on. So similarly, we're trying to sensitize. There are certain activities which might happen only once. An earthquake might happen only once in a major earthquake might happen only once during the lifetime of a building. A wind may happen couple of times during the life of a building, and live load is there every day. For example, dead load is permanently there. So this is similar analogy which I'm trying to generate, that there will be certain processes which will be done only once. For example, the what you call that, the technical sanction happens in the beginning. If there is no technical section, you cannot move. What is technical sanction? Technical sanction is the formal final approval of the cost estimates and the project, so that the finance can release the money. It happens in the beginning. Then there is a periodic things which are happening. PC3, for example, you are doing it every quarter, every month, every quarter, and submitting those reports. And there are daily activities which are happening, which, I mean, you acquire the resources. We have discussed this last time. Resources can be human resources, equipment resources. You are engaging them, you are monitoring them, you are preparing the concrete mixes and laying them and cross-checking them, and so on. So this is some of the things are happening all the time. Okay. The integrative nature of project management requires the monitoring and controlling process groups to interact with the other process group. So the point which we are trying to make over here is, if you have a process of concreting, your organization has defined that concreting is a process. And how this process will happen? The process is that when the concreting is to be done at a certain day, minus 7 days, the day when you are planning to do concreting, 7 days earlier, you need to initiate a request that we are going to do a concreting of 100 cubic meter, 5000 psi strength, with these properties for that element, structural element. So we need the approval. So this is submitted to the consultant. The consultant cross checks with the design specification, may suggest certain changes, may approve it as it is. Then it goes to the client. Maybe client is PDA, client is CDA, client is NHA, and they want to be present on that particular concreting just on that day. Their engineer would be just cross checking, maybe coming for 1 hour. For example, this is part of the process. So now the mix design is finalized in between these 7 days, for example, and then on the day of concreting, people are present, the materials, request is given to the procurement department for arranging the cement bags and all the resources. The human resource department is given the request for arranging the people, the skilled and semi-skilled labor, etc., and engineers, for example, and so on. Now this is the process. Now in this process, what we are trying to tell is, you have to interface, you have to plug in, you have to couple the monitoring and control process. So monitoring process, what, there are people who are quality assurance people. So what we did that, when we inform the consultant, when we inform the client, so their quality assurance people, which are the third, which can be said as maybe third party, they will be planning that we are going to take slum, we are going to measure the slum on that day, the value should be this much, we are going to make 5 cylinders, 10 cylinders, 20 cylinders, 30 cylinder. We are going to check 3 cylinders on 7 days, 3 cylinders on 14 days, 3 cylinders on 21 days, and 3 cylinders on 28 days, for example. For example, we will check the steel, we will check many things. You might be knowing about the construction of a, for example, a concrete slab. So this process of quality management, quality assurance is being plugged into this process, have been interfaced being this process. So this is what you have to understand. In addition, since management of a project is a finite effort, the initiating process group begins the project and the closing process group ends it. So for example, in this concreting, it is telling you, you enter the start, you do the initiation projects, you are monitoring and control processes, executing processes, closing processes, and ending the project. By the way, this is for the entire project, construction of a dam, which will happen over 5 years. I gave the example of one activity which was concreting, and on these monitoring and control process are broke down and applied. I don't know, मैंने बहुत complicated तो नहीं कर दिया शमरोज? समझ आई कि मैंने बहुत ही कॉम्प्लिकेटेड एक्सप्लेन किया है? रहीम?
नो सर।
अच्छा ठीक है, शमरोज को क्लियर है? एनीबॉडी एल्स? मुदस्सिर क्लियर है? मुदस्सिर मुदस्सिर दो मुदस्सिर हैं।
यस सर, क्लियर है सर।
ओके गुड। नोमान?
यस सर।
नोमान ढीला ढीला बोल रहे हैं, तबीयत तो ठीक है?
यस सर, तबीयत ठीक है।
आज नहीं है, आज आपकी आवाज में वो क्या कहेंगे, फ्रेश नहीं लग रहे मुझे।
नो सर, फ्रेश वैसी आवाज।
अच्छा अच्छा, चलें, कोई नहीं, कोई मसला नहीं, कोई इशू नहीं। ओके, शुड वी प्रोसीड? आगे चलें? नोमान अगली स्लाइड पे चलूं?
यस सर।
Okay. Okay, now let's see this. This is the relationship. This is a typical relationship. This is just to give you an idea. ये आपको एक आइडिया देने, आपके जो नोमान, आपके जो क्लास में फॉरेन स्टूडेंट हैं, is he able to understand little bit of Urdu or no?
यस सर, वो समझ जाते हैं उर्दू।
ठीक है, I'm generally speaking in English because we have foreign students, and otherwise it should be like that. But still, sometimes I switch to Urdu only for the reason so that the explanation is, maybe if there is any doubt, it becomes absolutely clear. So I hope the foreign student would not mind at times when I speak in Urdu, but that is not the objective. The objective is to always speak in English so that there is no confusion for the foreign student. Okay. So this I'm going to explain this graph, sort of a graph or a figure. It is giving the relationship, and this is just a very approximate sort of a conceptual graph, but the overall distribution is perfectly fine. It is absolutely fine. Now what it is, let's try to see. On the vertical axis, if you see, we have level of activity. How much is the level of effort? How much input is there? Small input, medium input, or very high input? Okay. On the horizontal axis is the time. Starting of the project and finishing of the project. So on the horizontal axis is the start to finish during the life cycle of the project. On the vertical axis is the level of effort. Level of effort is a technical word, by the way, please keep in mind. Level of effort means how much input will be given. Please keep in mind, sometimes internationally, level of efforts, I would say, generally would be considered as something like man days, man months, and so on. This is the fundamental unit of measurement. Man month or person month or man days or person days means if there is one engineer working for 2 hours per day, but it is working for 4 number of days, so the total effort becomes how much? 8 hours. Am I right? Noman, Mudassir.
यस सर।
So this 8 hours can be maybe called as 1 man day. If this person is working in such a way that, let's say, 22 days are completed, that can be considered loosely as 1 man month. Forget about the figure, there can be slight difference, it can be 22.5 or something like that. I'm not getting into those nitty gritty right now because we will switch to something else. I'm trying to give the concept. So this is the level of effort. If I say I want to engage Muhammad Noman for, let's say, 15% days, 15 man days, that is the level of effort. Now that 15 days may not be the calendar 15 days. Please keep in mind. I want to engage Noman for making some drawings and doing some estimations. I'm going to pay Noman for 1 day, for example, 1,000 rupees per day. For example, just for the sake of ease of calculation, I just took the number of 1,000, nothing to do with the actual market rate. I have no idea. Maybe it's correct or maybe wrong. So that is not the point. Just 1,000 for the sake of discussion. So the level of effort is 15 man days, 1,000 for 1 man day. So 15,000 rupees due after this. But this is not the calendar. It might be distributed over 2 months of calendar. So the point is, Noman will be working maybe like 4 hours on average per day, 4 hours per day, spread it over 2 months, which makes like 15 days. So the level of effort is not 2 months actually. Please don't get confused. If I tell you I've engaged Noman for 2 calendar months, that is not the level of effort. The level of effort is the actual working hours which he is going to make, which will be, for example, 15 man days and so on. So now this is the level of activity. Now let's go. Initiating process. This is the initiating process. You see that it starts at the zero time. It starts absolutely from the 0 day, 0 time. Sorry. And then you see it goes up, goes to the maximum, and it comes down. If I take the shaded area, this shaded area has a volume, for example. That volume can be like, now it depends upon the project. Let's say the project is a medium type of a project. So I will say, for example, this is 50 man months. 50 man months of effort. So that means maybe one structural engineer, for example, uh, working for, let's say, uh, 5 months, right? 5 months. We have 3 CAD engineers which are having, let's say, 30 man months, and so on. So different positions when added together, for example, it becomes 50 man months. So this is just a volume, but forget about this calculation. This is just a very supplementary micro detailing. I was not intending to go into this description. The objective of this figure is something else, but I just tried to give you an idea. Okay, now coming back, forget about this, which I told you, don't get confused over it. Come back. Now, if you see that initiating process gets the maximum somewhere over here, but while we were in the initiating process, you see another process just after the start, after some days, some months, another process started, which is the planning process. So the point is, the moment you initiate the project, your initiation process is still going on. It's not finished. And just after a small gap, you started the planning also. So there is an overlap. Now, the planning process, you see, gets the peak of its inputs at a certain stage, and then it goes down. It does not end, it keeps on going to a very long period, but you see the level of effort starts reducing at the later stages. Now you see, while we were here in the planning phase, we see with the planning phase there is something else which started with a flatter curve, and that is the controlling process. So you see, control is always there. Control should be there even from the planning phase. That whether the planning is being done, somebody should be controlling the planning as well. And then you see the control gets to the peak while we are about in the execution stage, close to maximum. You see, this is, I can say, this zone is of the peak happening of the project. Let's say BRT project is in the full swing. The road is under construction, the plaza is under construction, the corridor is being constructed, the underpasses are being constructed. So that is the peak of that. So when we are in the middle of project somewhere, so we have the actual activities going on almost at the peak. So the controlling process is almost at the peak, close to that peak, and that is about the approximately the middle, approximately, not exactly. Now this, you see the execution process started with a slighter delay after these two activities, with certain gap, with certain phase difference. The execution starts engagement of consultant or contractor, the mobilization of equipment, and eh, procuring the land, traffic diversion plans, and so many things have started happening. This is execution. So you see all these, you see over here, for example, in this phase, the initiation process, the planning process, the execution process are almost happening with very little efforts, but still they're happening. And as the time progresses, the planning starts going down and the execution starts going up. Controlling is uniformly there. And then you see when the planning process is ending, slightly before the closing starts, even planning is still at the verge of completion, slightly earlier the closing process starts, while the execution is almost at the peak. So you will not wait for the entire project to be completed and then you start the closing process. Closing process is what? For example, let me give you the example of BRT. The closing process of BRT project could be that the Trans Peshawar, which had nothing to do with the construction, but they are the ones who are going to take over, and they have taken over, and they are the one who are actually managing this project, running the buses, the ticketing system, the closing and maintenance of buses, everything. This is Trans Peshawar. So Trans Peshawar started to take over even when the execution was at the peak. So because if you say no, I want to start the closing process once the execution is completed. So just imagine everybody is gone. The technician who constructed the bridges, the stations, the electricity which was installed, the technicians, the the generators are installed, and all those technicians, everybody is gone. The entire team is gone. Now, from whom they are going to take over? How would they know how the things are operating? What are good and bads? What are ins and outs of all the systems? So this can't be like that. It has to be overlapping. So then it gets closed. And then you can see in general, another view I'm going to tell you, something different I'm going to speak. If you see the volume of the initiating process, if I say it is 50 man months, if you see the planning process, definitely it is more than the initiating process. Maybe it is 100, maybe it is 150, whatever, 2 times or 3 times, whatever. You can see the approximate distribution. Now, if you see the execution process, that is the most resource consuming, the highest number of level of activity or level of effort was being done at the execution. It might be 10 times or 20 times or 30 times the planning process, or maybe 50 times. It depends upon the project. Controlling process has a reasonable input, maybe equal to the planning process, maybe slightly more than that, maybe slightly less than that. Then the closing process might be in terms of level of effort might be close to the initiating process, or maybe little slightly bigger or slightly smaller. So this is the entire uh, sort of conceptualization of the process groups which are happening, and I try to give you example of a real project. Now, before I go to the next slide, I want to have questions or comments. Anybody who has a question, who has a comment? Question is question. I mean, you want to ask something, and I will answer that. And comment means what? You want to add something, you want to disagree with something, you want to slightly modify something. Go ahead. Any question or comment?
मैं बीच में डिस्कनेक्ट हुआ था, तो ये कंट्रोलिंग जो प्रोसेस सर, ये सेफ्टी इंजीनियर परफॉर्म मतलब रिस्पांसिबल हो रहा है।
मोहम्मद आमिर, जरा क्वेश्चन आपका थोड़ा सा बीच में आवाज कट के दोबारा से पूछ लें। सेफ्टी इंजीनियर की क्या बात हो रही है, किस चीज पे?
सर ये कंट्रोलिंग जो प्रोसेस है ना सर, मैं बीच में डिस्कनेक्ट हुआ था, तो ये सेफ्टी इंजीनियर जो है सर रिस्पांसिबल होता है इसका।
Okay, good question. Amir is asking, is the safety engineer responsible for controlling process? Please keep in mind, safety is just one important and critical aspect of any project. It can be the safety of humans, it can be safety of the equipment, it can be safety of the stakeholders. For example, if you just imagine BRT project, a mega project, every one of you has seen it and you see it daily. So safety of the public is also part of that. So the answer is no. It is just not the safety. It is safety people will be one of the people who will be controlling the safety aspect of the project. There will be quality assurance engineers who will be ensuring the quality of the various components of the projects when they are happening. There will be contract management people who will be controlling that the project is being executed as per the contract agreement. And within the contract agreement, then you have various things. For example, you have specification of the materials which has been committed and agreed upon. So there will be people, either contract engineer, legal people, or engineers. They will be looking into each aspect that the materials are being properly done. So they are controlling that aspect. Time is another factor which is being controlled. Quality, time, and cost. Somebody is there who's trying to control the cost. So there will be number of different things which are being involved in the controlling process. ठीक हो गया आमिर?
यस सर, समझ गए।
Anybody else? ये तो आमिर तो डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया तो पूछ लिया, वरना जो डिस्कनेक्ट नहीं हुए उनका कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है, सब कुछ समझ आ गया।
सर
जी पहले तूरे सीनीन, उसके बाद फिर मुदस्सिर, उसके बाद फिर मंसूर। जी तूरे सीनीन।
सर ये कंट्रोलिंग प्रोसेस स्टार्ट से क्यों नहीं स्टार्ट हुआ? ये इनिशिएटिंग प्रोसेस से क्यों नहीं स्टार्ट हुआ? ये प्लानिंग प्रोसेस स्टार्ट हुआ है।
ओके देखिए, थ्योरेटिकली तो आप सोचें कि एक कॉमन मिसकंसेप्शन ये हो सकती थी कि कंट्रोलिंग प्रोसेस शुड स्टॉप व्हेन एग्जीक्यूशन इज हैपनिंग। तो और एग्जीक्यूशन, बाय द वे, एग्जीक्यूशन शुड स्टार्ट व्हेन द प्लानिंग इज फिनिश्ड। सो पहली बात आप ये रियलाइज करें कि ऐसा नहीं है, और वो आपको समझ आ गया। आई अंडरस्टैंड कि नाउ यू गॉट द पॉइंट, इट इज नॉट लाइक दैट। अच्छा, आप देखिए कंट्रोलिंग प्रोसेस स्टार्ट कब हुआ? कंट्रोलिंग प्रोसेस जो है वो प्लानिंग के टाइम पे स्टार्ट हुआ। आप कहती हैं इनिशिएशन पे क्यों नहीं स्टार्ट हुआ? देखिए, इनिशिएशन बजाते खुद एक वो स्टेज है कि जिसके ऊपर अभी चीजें कंसीव हुई हैं, चीजें अभी सामने आ रही हैं, उनकी तफसीलात अभी बन रही हैं, और वो भी देखिए अभी खत्म नहीं हुआ। इनिशिएशन प्रोसेस इज नॉट एंडेड। आपका एतराज बड़ा मुनासिब हो जाता कि अगर आप ये कहती कि सर इनिशिएशन प्रोसेस खत्म हुआ और फिर आपने कंट्रोलिंग शुरू किया, ये तो गलत हुआ। इट शुड बी, सो यू सी दैट द कंट्रोलिंग प्रोसेस is happening at almost at the very beginning of the initiation process. I mean, देखिए, आज अगर हम एक प्रोजेक्ट को सोच रहे हैं तो अभी कंट्रोल की कोई तुक नहीं बनती। हमारा इनिशिएशन प्रोसेस अगर 2 महीने का है, तो अगर दो हफ्ते के बाद, फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर हमारा इनिशिएशन प्रोसेस स्टार्ट, कंट्रोलिंग प्रोसेस स्टार्ट हो जाए, विच मेक्स सेंस, बट आज के दिन से स्टार्ट करने की क्या, आज तो हमें पता ही नहीं कि हमने क्या करना है. सो व्हाट शुड वी कंट्रोल? सो दैट्स व्हाई देयर इज स्लाइट डिले ऑफ स्टार्टिंग द कंट्रोलिंग प्रोसेस. इज इट क्लियर?
Yes, sir.
ओके, मुझे एक सेकंड दें, एक सेकंड दें मुझे. नोमान एक सेकंड दें, सॉरी मंसूर एक सेकंड दें.
ओके सर.
जी मंसूर पूछें प्लीज.
सर कमेंट है एक सर.
जी प्लीज करें ना.
सर जैसे आपने भी एग्जांपल दी बीआरटी की सर, तो बीआरटी प्रोजेक्ट जो है वो सर बहुत ज़्यादा डिले हुआ था.
जी जी
और उसका मेरे ख्याल से ये प्लानिंग प्रोसेस में जो है इसका बहुत ज़्यादा इफेक्ट हुआ था.
ठीक है, ठीक है.
सर इसमें ये चीज़ हो गई है, और सर ये इसमें एग्जीक्यूटिंग प्रोसेसेस में भी उसके मसले थे.
सही.
तो सर आपके लिए ज़रा थोड़ा-सा इसको अगर मॉडिफ़ाई कर दें कि क्या यही प्रोसेसेस जो थे इनमें मसला था, या
ठीक है.
ओवरऑल और चीज़?
ओके, ठीक है, ठीक है. ए गुड क्वेश्चन. और चूंकि हमारी क्लास जो है वो भी इट इज रिलेटेड टू, वी आर ट्रेनिंग, आई मीन एज ए टीचर, एज ए यूनिवर्सिटी वी आर ट्रेनिंग इंजीनियर्स. कल आप में से कई लोग जो होंगे वो पीडीए में, सीडीए में, एनएचए में, रेलवे में, वापटा में, वेरियस डिपार्टमेंट्स या दुनिया के और ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में काम कर रहे होंगे. और केस स्टडीज जो हैं वो डेफिनेटली दे आर ऑलवेज वेरी हेल्पफुल. So Mansoor has actually given an example and he has commented according to his analysis. By the way, this is not a comment. I would say it is an analysis and good analysis. That he says that he feels that there is a issue of probably the initial issue. There were issues in the planning. That's why it got delayed. And then he thinks that there were some issues in the execution, and because of that, it happened. So before I comment on what Mansoor has said, I would like to say a few things which we should keep in mind. The first thing is that definitely it was a mega project. It is a mega project. Secondly, various departments were doing it for the first time. So the engineers, the human resources which are there, I mean, they also have certain definitely limitation and experience. Those organizations which are old and who have done these projects couple of times, they are well prepared as an organization. I'm not talking as an individual. Nothing to talk on that part. So those might be the underlying factor, first of all. Now, coming to this process, generally, I agree. If your planning process is thorough, if your planning process is detailed, if your planning process is done with extreme care, with lot of input. Lot of input means input from stakeholders, input from for various design options, and then it goes through that process of iterative process. We just talked about iteration in the previous slides. If it goes through number of iterations during the planning phase, then it is expected, and I believe strongly in that, then your execution will see least problems. You can't say there will be no problems. In the real world, I used to say, if a managers tell me that there are no problems, so that means there are some very serious problems. So in real life, all the projects would encounter lot of challenges. It is simply impossible that a project goes absolutely smooth. It is not possible. This is not how it is. In real life, various things are happening. Cost gets escalated. Your everything is fine, but there is increase in the price of dollar, and the cost hike is there, and then you're stuck with something, and time gets delayed, and so on. So, anyways, so yes, if your planning is very thorough, very well thought of, stakeholders completely on board, and due process done, so there will be less issues in the execution. And yes, in the execution, if the planning is poor, then naturally, without saying, execution will also become poor. If the planning is very, very good, there is chances that if you don't act to your plan, which is a very good plan, then your execution may be suffering as well. So they are coupled to each other. And if you read the planning commission's manual, it very clearly also described that a reasonable input should be spent on the planning process, because then you are better in controlling and execute, because your control is then good, so the execution is going very good. So Noman, I agree with you. No, sorry, Mansoor.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है, आप कह रहे हैं can we say it is failure project in terms of project managing? Well, now to comment exclusively and put the entire conclusion just by a superficial analysis, I would say it should not be fair. I should not be commenting on the entirety of the project. We just talked about it. Mansoor pointed out something to which I agree is only related to, for example, time management. So I concluded on that part. But if you say that the project is failure, so I think it will not be justified on my part that without going into the details, technical, financial, administrative, funding of donor agencies, and so many things, socio-political aspects. So without touching on those things, I think it will be unfair to say that a project has failed or a project has succeeded. We totally agree. It is a glaringly seen that it was a very substantial delay in the project, without any doubts. Nobody can deny that. Nobody can deny that. So that's why I concluded very clearly on that part. But if you want me to classify this project as a failure, I would not going to do that, because in order to classify a project as a failure, there is just not one thing. There are many things. Small portion of failure, if you say in terms of time, yes, it was there. But if you put the entire project to be failed project, no, I would not do that. It is unfair. The project is up and running. Many people, hundreds and thousands of people are benefiting. I mean, it is a success from that angle. It can be failure from another angle. So conclusion, I don't like to, I don't want to draw over here in the class without going into the details. ठीक हो गया मंसूर? Is it clear? Mic open करके बोले.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? बस दो ही क्वेश्चन है. दो ही क्वेश्चन है. सेक्शन आपका कौन सा? डी है ना?
ई
ई.
सेक्शन.
मैं अटेंडेंस ले रहा हूँ सर. अटेंडेंस.
ओके सर.
आप भी ले लेंगे अपना नोमान. मैं भी ले लेता हूँ ताकि कोई इशू ना हो.
ओके सर.
Okay, let's move further, sir. Let's move further. We are quite behind. Okay. Now it says project management knowledge areas. Now we go into nitty-gritty. In addition to process groups, processes are also categorized by knowledge areas. The 10 knowledge areas identified by Project Management Institute, PMI, Project Management Institute. It's an international organization. Like you have ACI, you have ASHTO or ISO. Similarly, we have PMI. Project integration management, project scope management, project type management, project cost management, project quality management, human resource management, project communication management, project risk management, project procurement management, project stakeholder management. So this is the further breakdown. This is the further breakdown into depth. So what is project integration management? Very critical. I gave the example in the beginning, the admission process. I gave the example in the beginning of a process of admission. Previously, is where it was disintegrated, sort of. So just imagine if I go to the inquiry, if they don't tell me, they say yes, this is UET Peshawar, and they ask me, no, please go and find the department yourself. We have no idea. For example, I'm just giving a just very out of place example. It doesn't happen like that, but I'm just trying to hypothesize something. So just imagine that all the departments are there and there is no integration between them. So I will not be able to get the admission. So, but that was the format where the process is not there. Now, if there is a process and they are still not integrated, so again, there is a problem. So in any project, in entirety, there should be some element, there should be some forces, there should be some people, some resources who are being responsible for integrating the things. For example, can you imagine that you will do the resource management efficiently without communication management? For example, resource management. Imagine the BRT project, 26 kilometer, urban area, lot of traffic, daytime. Concreting on the piling has to be done in the Tehkal area. Now I need the drill. I need the boring machines. I need the steel reinforcement to be lowered and then concreting to be done. And I need labor for that. I also need police for traffic management on that particular hour because I need to close for just 30 minutes some portion of the main road because some big object needs to be maneuvered, for example. Now, can you imagine without communication with police, with the concrete supplier or the facility which we have established, without communication with the PDA, without communication with the consultant, is it possible to do that, Noman?
No, sir.
It is not possible. So there should be somebody who will be integrating the resource management with communication management. Similarly, quality management. So everything is coupled. I mean, I can't overemphasize. You people are intelligent enough to see, but let's see what are the things. So this is integration. Scope management. Scope means if I need to do 30 piles, 1 meter dia, 20 meter deep, then I should be doing these. With FC prime of 4000 psi, this is what I should achieve. What if my concrete is more, or I do instead of 1 meter dia, I go to 1.25 meter dia, and so on. Somebody tells me to do something extra. Instead of 20 meter, maybe 22 meter. For example, I'm told to install manual gates, but now I'm installing the auto gates, or my scope of work is to install automatic gates and I'm installing the manual gates. I'm not installing the elevators and so many things. So scope management is one critical aspect in big projects. Time management is very, very critical. You know this. Cost management is understandable, very, very critical. Quality management. You understand that. Human resource management, I just gave the example. I need 20 laborers, 5 technicians, 2 engineers to do certain thing, certain concreting of piles or station, overhead station at a particular day, and at 1 a.m. in the morning, I need these people. So somebody should be there to do these human resource management. Communication management is, if something changes, it needs to be coordinated all across. The road has to be closed at 12:30 for 30 minutes. So there should be somebody should be telling the police and other departments that this will be happening. The public should be advertised, should be informed that please keep in mind at this time if there will be a traffic jam. Risk management. Accidents happen, quality goes bad, delays and this and that. So somebody has to manage those risks. Procurement. I need 100 ton of steel every second day. I need 50,000 of cement bags in every third day. So somebody should be looking for procurement. And by the way, please keep in mind, procurement cannot be done without quality. If I get the cement, which is not fulfilling the requirement of ASTM, then is that cement worth of buying? No. Stakeholder management, I just gave the example, informing police, public, etc. So all these things are coupled with each other and they need to be done. I just explained to you all these things. Please, you can go and read these things. Let me quickly go over this. Now let's see process groups and knowledge areas mapping. So we have done the mapping of all these things. This is the project management book. Acha. What it says, you see initiating process, planning process, executing, monitoring and closing. Then we have the knowledge areas, project integration management, project scope management, and so on, all these 10 areas. Now you see, develop project charter. It says develop project management plan. It says plan scope management, collect requirements, define scope, create WBS. So it is telling you precisely where what has to be done. Project resource management, plan resource management, acquire project team, develop project team, manage project team, right? In execution. Communication, it is telling you project communication management in terms of monitoring and control, that you should have a control of communications over here, control of risk over here. So this is the matrix which has been coupled in different fashion over here. So you should be looking into these parameters. For example, the last one is project stakeholder management. So it says in the initiating process, identify the stakeholders. Then it is telling you in the planning process, plan, track, stakeholder management. How you're going to manage the public, just consider BRT. So in the initiating process, you have to identify the public is your stakeholder. For example, police is your stakeholder. Now in the second planning phase, you make a plan that how these stakeholders will be managed. You will talk to police. You will talk to IGP. I mean, whoever is the project manager, he will talk to the IGP that, sir, this is the project. These are the dynamics. This, because the police does not know in the beginning that what type of project. I mean, they would know that it is a big project, but they don't really know what are the details, where the road will be closed, what type of construction will happen. This is, you know, what will be happening. So you will tell and brief the IGP, sir, this is the nature, this type of congestion will happen. Our daily traffic is this much. These are the main routes. These are the peak hours. And this is what we are planning. And we need your support. And we will be telling you. And then you talk back and forth with the traffic police and draw up the conclusion that this is how we will be managing. You will set up the communication protocols as well. 24 hours earlier, we will inform you, and this and that, so many details. Similarly, how the public will be informed. Maybe you will talk to the FM channel, you talk to the local news channel, you talk with the other mechanisms which might be available, messaging system or something like that. Anyway, maybe signboards to inform the people, maybe putting lights somewhere. So it depends that how you are going to do that. Maybe a website which is telling on the daily basis where the things will be happening and that being updated for public, general public. Okay. Manage stakeholders engagement, that how they will be engaged in the execution process, control the stakeholder engagement in the controlling process. So I hope it is Mansoor. Is it clear this very slide?
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Okay. Ture Sinin.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Mudassar Zaman Afridi.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Musawir.
Yes, sir.
Clear hai?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Let's go further. Now it is the initiation process group. The process group includes answering what do you need to do. This is the initiating. Now we are going to quickly see these process groups. By the way, you can read it. I've already given you in detail, but just quickly, let me go quickly over this and then you can read it, because I'm trying to explain in my own way, in my own words, and the rest you can read it from here. So in the initiating process group, you need to answer what do you need to do, right? So answering this question, you are able to answer many things. So it says that initial scope is defined and financial resources are committed, internal and external stakeholders are identified, the project manager is recruited. Project manager is recruited. Let me go to the project manager. That is more important. Project charter approval. Okay. Planning process. In planning process, how will you do it? How will you do it? Now there are 20 steps which are given. And in fact, processes are given. Develop project management plan, collect requirements, define scope, create WBS, work breakdown structure, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity resources. If I have to do the concreting of the piles, I need a concrete truck of this 100 cubic meter, 50, 10, 20 cubic meter capacity, or whatever. 5 helpers, 1 technician, 1 welder, etc. And it will take how much time, when it should be done. Cost will be automatically calculated. You're doing the budgeting. Budget means you are estimating in advance that how much money will be required when. Quality should be planned. Human resources pointed out. Communications, the plan for communication, I already discussed that to you. Risk management. In Tahkal area, very congested, you're working on the overhead station, objects can fall. Public is moving below. How to prevent that? People are working at height, they can fall. So some safety nets to be provided. Public needs to be diverted, some nets to be provided so that nothing falls on them, and so on. So you do the risk management, identification of risk, qualitative risk analysis. So qualitative risk analysis means that what type of risk are there, and then it is not quantified. Then you do the quantification of that risk. So what are the plans in terms if the risk transforms into issues, what will happen, and you need to plan procurement. So these are 20 generalized activities which needs to be there in the planning. So you should need to address all of them. Let me go. Execution. Manage project team, develop project teams, distribute information. Let me skip. I have talked on these things. Let me go to project manager. You are the project manager, sir. The project manager is the person assigned by the performing organization to lead the team that is responsible for achieving the project objective. Please keep in mind, generally the project manager will be given lot of authority. Without authority, there can be no responsibility. If limited authority, then naturally it will be limited. It will be limited in that terms. So project managers are generally they have been given authority, for example, building up the team, managing the team, deploying the team, and he or she can take a lot of decisions. So it's a very critical. The overall success is is on the shoulders of the project manager. He or she is just like the captain of a ship who tells in which direction, at what speed should we go. Wrong decisions are on the manager level, the project gets derailed and a lot of problems. The project manager plays a critical role in the leadership. Many project managers become involved in the project from its initiation. So it is ideal that project manager should be engaged from the initiation stage and throughout the closing. It's very important. Many things are part of your thinking process, in your memories, in your head, in your brain. So it should be involved. It is just not reading the documents. It is just to understand what the project, there should be a feel of the project for the project manager. So you see, the project manager is affecting the project teams immediately, and then the governing bodies and the sponsors, and then the stakeholders. So at the core of the project is the project manager. And if you remember, that's why I said the project managers are generally highly paid, because they are not paid because they are project manager. They are paid highly. They are highly paid because they have a lot of responsibilities. They have a lot of experience, and you need to hire a project manager who has the relevant experience and a reasonable experience and qualifications to undertake that. What are the project manager job description? The role of project manager is to plan, execute, finalize projects according to the strict deadlines and within budgets. Whatever we discussed with regard to project, it is his responsibility or her responsibility. This includes acquiring the resources, engaging people, equipment, machine, whatnot, coordinating the efforts of team members and third-party contractors and consultants in order to deliver the project according to plan. Very critical role, by the way. Very critical role. The project manager will also define the project's objectives and oversees quality control throughout its life cycle. So project objective generally would be in consultation with the different stakeholders are set, not alone by the project manager, by the way. And then the project manager sets the control parameters. A project manager is the person who has the overall responsibility of the success of the project. Below is the responsibility list of project manager. Manage the project taking into account integration across all areas. Yes, project manager is the key person who has to ensure that there is the integration between all those things which we discussed earlier. Engaging with the stakeholders, developing the plan, project resources are being directed and engaged, monitor and manage the project, deal with operational issues. On daily basis, there are something happening, good or bad. So he has to or she has to handle those. Organize steering committee meetings that decides on the priorities. Generally, in big projects, there will be steering committees who give an overall direction. There will be issues coming up. There will be some delays. There will be some material problems. There will be some traffic problems. So many things. So there generally for projects there are steering committees comprising of senior people who are sort of decision makers. So with the help of those committee consultation, the project manager executes the project. It reports to the steering committee, yes, raising strategic issues. So this committee is not responsible that for minor issues, not day-to-day issue. They are there for planning and for strategic planning, strategic changes they might be needed in the project execution to make it successful. Project reports are being prepared, status report by the project manager, ensure project meets requirements and objective, manage project team members, negotiate and resolve issues as they arise across the areas. There will be a lot of issues coming up, sir. Public might demonstrate, department might be unhappy, employees may be unhappy due to certain things and so on. So everything on the shoulder of project manager. ऐसा ना हो नोमान आप भाग जाएं कि सर मैंने तो प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर नहीं बनना.
नो सर.
अच्छा मंसूर.
नहीं सर, और सर हमारी तो इंटरेस्ट भी इसी
अच्छा अच्छा, हाँ ना, मैंने कहा ये ना आज का ये लेक्चर सुन के आप कहें जी जान बा उबासु यार दा मैनेजमेंट डे मुश्किल कार थे।
नो सर।
अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है। So lot of responsibility. Okay, let me go. Role of engineer and project manager. जब आप when tomorrow when you as a young engineer when you get engaged, so what could be your responsibility? Engineering assignments are often completed by project teams. So project manager has various teams working under him. You know that quality team, contracts team, site supervision teams, design teams, and so on, planning teams. So you may be part of any such team. The engineering project manager serves in the role of the team leader and has ultimate responsibility. The project roles of engineers. The scope of project defines the project statement. Okay, let me, let me, let me. Okay, let me tell you, engineers, what could be responsibility of you, for example. Some of you might be the site engineers. And what is site engineer? You will be told by your team lead. The project manager may be directly supervising you, but if it is a big project, maybe the project manager has then various team leaders for various activities. For example, there will be a team leader for quality assurance, they might be team leader for um, concreting, for steel structures, and so on. So you can imagine the project, and accordingly, there might be various 3 or 4 or 5 team leaders. So if you, as a young engineer, you might be site supervisor. And what is happening is there is the road cut and fill happening, road work is being done. So you are responsible for arranging that the surveyor is there, you take the NSL, joint NSL, and then you submit the report data to the design office so that they can map it in the CAD. Then the next day, some subgrade, etc., is being laid. So you need to check their compaction is being done properly. You prepare the daily report. There are requests from the contractor, then they want to go for the base, sub base, and so on, and TST or DST, whatever is the case, asphalt being done. Maybe some of you is site engineer on concreting of a pier or a girder or a pile, whatever. Maybe a site inspector as a of the steel I mean of the station which is being constructed as a steel structure. So you're looking after those welding and bolting and all those things. Some of you might be working as a CAD engineer. So the data which was sent from the field, you are there and doing the CAD work. Some of you might be working on quantities estimation, calculating the quantities, processing the bills. The contractor will submit the bill. You have to check all the calculations, whether they are right or wrong. You have to sign it off, send it to your supervisor or your team leader. He signs it or she signs it, and then it goes to somebody else for payment. And the payment will be in millions. So you have to be very careful in doing those calculations, cross checking it. Some of you might be working as a design engineer. So during the project execution, many changes are happening, and you're designing those adjustments and changes so that the work doesn't stop. If it is a major change, maybe you refer it to the original consultant, maybe somewhere in Lahore or Karachi or maybe abroad for any major deviations. So you are making the bar bending schedules as a engineer in the office. Bar bending schedule, you know that it is the the details of cutting of the bars and their shapes. You might be planning engineer, you planning all these activities over there. So there can be many things. So I think with this we stop over here, kyunki 9:46 now. Before we leave, any question? Any question?
No, sir.
ठीक है। नो ओके, नोमान आपने अटेंडेंस आपने भी ले ली है ना?
Yes, sir.
ओके, तो ठीक है, देन वी कैन आई कैन स्टॉप द रिकॉर्डिंग एंड यू कैन लीव।
सर ये रिकॉर्डिंग अभी शेयर कर दे।
जी मैं शेयर कर दूंगा, हो जाएगी।